JJ Math. Let's look at grouping. So when do you do grouping? When you have more than three terms. So four or more, you would group them together and then take out a common factor out of each group. Okay, let's look how I would apply that. So in question A, I can group the first two together and the next two. So the goal is always that if I grouped and I took out a common factor, the brackets need to be exactly the same. So for this first one, I can take out a 2 from these two. Okay, so that would leave me with P minus Q. And then for the next group, I can take out a positive N, and that leaves me with P minus Q. Okay, perfect. So now my brackets are the same. That means in the next step, I can take out the bracket as the common factor. That would give me P minus Q, and I'm left with 2 plus N. And that's it. So I know I'm done when the brackets are the same, and there's no pluses or minuses that are not in brackets. Okay, question B. In this case, I'm going to group the first two together again, and then I can see I can take out 4p squared. What's left is p plus 1. The next group, I can take out a 5. So I'm left with p plus 1. My brackets are the same, so that's my common factor. And I'm left with 4p squared plus 5. Perfect, that is done. In the next one, I can take out a x squared from the first two. That leaves me with x plus 2. And then, very important, if the middle term or the third term has a minus, I can take out a minus with the common factor. So that would leave me with minus 2, and in the bracket, x plus 2. And that's how I get the brackets the same, so therefore x plus 2, and then x squared minus 2 is my final answer. Okay, so that looks fairly simple. So sometimes it works when you just group the first two and the last two. But other times you will have to reshuffle them and see if that might work. Let's look at a few challenges to just show you what can happen with grouping. Okay, so like I said, if you have more than three terms, you would do grouping. Now this one is a bit tricky because there's already brackets there. So you can go and multiply out the last two brackets, but that's going to make the sum more complicated. I can definitely see this is not a trinomial, even though there are three terms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group the first two, but I'm first going to do some factorization there. So that is actually difference of squares, which would give me k plus 3, k minus 3. And now I have a common bracket of k minus 3 in both terms. So this is quite a tricky one, and many people would first fall out and reshuffle, and then it gets way more complicated. So in this case, because those two brackets are similar, that would be my common factor. So I'm going to say that's k minus 3. And then what I'm left with, and now very important, because I'm working with so many brackets, I need to do block brackets for this one. So this would be k plus 3. And then what's left is the bracket that I did not underline in purple, so it's 1 minus 2k. And for the next step, I can then distribute in this minus in there. So first bracket just stays the same. This one would then be k plus 3, and I'm going to multiply the minus in, so minus 1 plus 2k. Final answer for this case would then be k minus 3. This would be 1k plus 2k gives me 3k, and 3 minus 1 gives me positive 2. That is the final answer. So even though it didn't look like grouping at the beginning, that's the only way I could have factorized this into two brackets. The next one I consider as the most difficult variation of grouping because I need to think way outside of the box. Okay, so how do I know this is a special one? Okay, so the x relates to the 4xy, so they can go together, but the y squared also relates to the 4xy, so those three can go together. So in this grouping, I'm going to group it as 3 and 1, because the p doesn't connect to anything else. There's a 4 in there and a 16, but the p is the thing that makes it stand out. So in this case, I actually need to do a trinomial and then look at the p squared at the end. So in this case, this would be x minus 2y, and then x minus 2y. I just leave the 16p squared just like it is, and I can rewrite this as x minus 2y squared minus 16p squared. By writing it in that format, I can now see this is actually difference of two squares. So I'm going to do a block bracket, and then x minus 2y minus 4p, and then in the next one, x minus 2y in its own bracket plus 4p. Block bracket. Okay, and then final answer in this case, I just drop the inside round brackets, and this would be x minus 2y minus 4p, and then x minus 2y plus 4p. There we go. So now I factorized because all my pluses and minuses are in brackets, and it forms one term. Okay, great. So it started extremely easy, and then the last two can be quite challenging. Not that the factorization is difficult, but to see which type of factorization you need to do first. That can be the challenge. So good luck with this. Remember, I'm going to put tests at the end of this playlist. Please try them, and let me know how it goes.
If this video helped you, please like and subscribe.
JJ Math!